Hey, welcome back everyone. Jason Hitchings here with Adept Defense, and today we're going to take a look at the Taurus G2C. So we'll run through the specs real quick and then we'll take it to the range and put some rounds through it and see how it does. Now, before we get into that, why did I buy a Taurus? To me, Taurus has kind of been one of those brands that has the reputation for building very low budget, lower quality type guns. In my opinion, they were always kind of one of those brands that at the big box type gun stores or sporting goods stores that had a pistol case, these were just kind of like filler guns, you know. They had some decent guns in the case, but then they had a bunch of guns like this to take up space. So why would I purchase one of these guns to have a review on it on my channel? So on this channel, I've always reviewed guns that I knew had a pretty good reputation, guns that I could get behind and recommend to other people. So this kind of came to be with, I was putting in a purchase with Palmetto State Armory, and at the checkout cart portion of the website it said, would you like to add a Taurus G2C to your cart for $179? So at first I was like, no, hard pass on that. But the more I thought about it, I've had a couple of these G2Cs come through my class this past summer, and they actually did surprisingly well. They made it through the class. I don't remember any of them having any malfunction type issues, or maybe a malfunction here or there, but nothing that really stuck out in my mind. So I know I've seen these come through class, so I thought, for $179 maybe we'll pick one up, put it through its paces, do a little bit of hard testing on it. I watched some reviews that are out there on YouTube now. Everybody pretty much gives the tabletop, goes out, puts some rounds through it, gives an opinion. Well, I'd like to actually put this gun through some hard use. So we're going to get it dirty, we're going to abuse it a little bit, and we're going to see how it does. Now, for that $179 price point, obviously you can't have the expectations that it's going to perform like a $600 gun with a proven track record. So this is just kind of one of those, you got to kind of keep your expectations in check. We'll go put it through its paces and see if it is something that you could recommend to somebody that's on an extreme budget. Now, obviously, if somebody has the budget to be able to afford something like a Glock or an M&P or a SIG or something like that, I would definitely recommend that over something like this. But budgets are budgets and everybody's different. So if somebody wants a home defense option to be able to protect their family and they can't spend more than $200, we're going to see if we can recommend this. Alright, specs on the Taurus G2C. I'm not going to go into a bunch of time on unboxing it. It's your typical packaging with the cardboard box. Comes with the cable lock. Comes with two 12-round magazines. So like I said, this is a 9mm 12+1 capacity. The magazines do look to be of pretty decent construction. Metal mags, high-vis followers, pinky extension on both of the mags, which I like. I don't like the guns where you've got the pinky hanging off in the wind when you shoot it on one magazine. This has pinky extensions on both of them, so I am a fan of that. Now, as far as size and dimensions on this gun, it is a 3¼ inch barrel. It's a double stack. It does have a manual thumb safety, which for me, it's kind of take it or leave it. If you could buy it without, I would probably buy it without. I'm not a big fan of manual thumb safeties on striker fire guns, especially when they've got the trigger safety like this one does, like most polymer guns do. As far as sights go on this gun, they are plastic or polymer style 3-dot sights, as you can see there. The rear is adjustable, which is a little bit different, both windage and elevation adjustable. I'm not a big fan of plastic sights. I always change them on Glocks. So we'll see. We'll put these sights through some testing. We'll do some one-handed manipulations with them, see if they hold up, see if that rear adjustable sight, maybe it's got enough material, being that it is of the adjustable design. It's quite a bit bigger than like a rear sight on a Glock. maybe it's got enough material there that it will hold up well, and we'll see. We'll see if it gets ripped off the gun during one-handed manipulations or if it holds up. So as far as other things to point out on this gun, it does have a loaded chamber indicator that the little indicator pops up when there's a round in the chamber. I'm not a big fan of those, especially this mechanical type that it pops up. I don't trust them. I still press check to know the condition of my weapon. Some people have varying thoughts on that, but that's my 2 cents. It's got one. If you want to use it, it's totally up to you. It does not have forward slide serrations. However, it does have these machined grooves, which it's kind of tapered, and then it gets fatter here towards the barrel hood of the slide. So one thing that's kind of nice about that is, even though it doesn't have forward slide serrations, you can come over the top and use those little indents where it tapers to be able to get some traction on the front of the slide. So if you want to manipulate this gun forward to the ejection port, that gives you a little bit of traction, or if you just want to press check it to verify the condition of the gun, it gives you a little bit of traction that way as well. So that's something to point out. It does have an accessory rail notch on the very front of it. Like I said, 3 1/4 inch barrel, so this is very short, so I don't know. I haven't researched what lights actually fit on this gun. I haven't tried any of my lights on it. Honestly, the lights that I own, the Surefire lights, they all cost twice as much as this gun does. So for me, it's kind of a moot point. You know, if you're of the budget of having to buy a gun like this, you're probably not going to buy a $300 Surefire light to put on it. So I didn't look too much into that. But we're going to take it to the range, put it through its paces, see how it does. We'll get it dirty. We're not going to be easy on this gun. I'm going to give you guys an honest review, and we'll see how it performs. Alright, we made it to the range. Very first rounds through this Taurus G2C. I've got some of my old carry ammo. I switch my carry ammo out every 6 months, so this is the ammo out of my carry gun from this summer. It is Federal HST 124 grain 9mm. So we're going to run that through it. Very first rounds. If it won't run quality carry ammo, then this gun is going to be a hard pass for me. So first test, let's see how it shoots this. Alright, that ran fine. 12 rounds Federal HST. It locked back on the last round. One thing that's a little bit weird about this gun, and it's kind of my first complaint, it functions fine, but we're cleared out now. It's this amount of pre-travel that this trigger has. It feels like it has 3 times more pre-travel than any other gun I shoot. It just, to me, it feels like it takes forever to prep that trigger to get it back to the wall before you're ready to fire. And that's just something that's going to take some getting used to. Now when you do fire it, and then you're riding that reset, if that's the way that you control your trigger, and you let it out, it's pretty short as far as that goes. You don't have to go all the way through that pre-travel again. But on that very first shot, when you're pressing out and you're prepping that trigger as you're acquiring your sight picture, it feels like it has a ton of pre-travel in that trigger. So that's just something that I'm gonna have to get used to a little bit. So that's the first thing I don't like about shooting this gun. But after you break that first shot and then you're riding that reset through the rest of them, you kind of get used to what that trigger travel has to be, and then it's much shorter after that. It's just that very first shot. Alright, it ran the Federal HST just fine. Now we're switching to 147 grain Blazer brass. I'm trying to run some decent ammo through this gun, and it would be good to run cheap, low quality ammos through it too, just to see if that works. But to be honest with you guys, I don't really buy cheap, low quality ammo. So this is the ammo I run for my USPSA matches, 147 grain 9mm. So I'm back at 5 yards. I put up a dot torture target. I'm gonna shoot that top 2-inch circle to kind of see what type of hold and what type of sight alignment I need to have with these sights on this gun to get accurate shots. at this distance here. So just kind of playing around, testing the gun, getting some ammo through it. One thing I have found, it's happened a couple times on me too. Now with having the slide locked open, fresh mag, and I go to insert it, it kind of hangs up part way in at times, and it might just be the angle at which I insert it and go to seat it. Something on this mag hangs up about halfway in on that magazine catch, and I like to try to duplicate, like, yeah, right there I had it just for a second. Yeah, right there. So I've got pressure against it now, and it hangs up on that mag release inside the gun. So just something to note. It's not very smooth as far as reloads. When you come up, like right there, it hung up, and I got to push past it to get it to seat. So one more negative about this gun, we're kind of discovering things as we go. All right, 12 rounds, slide locked back on the last round, which is good. Now let's take the camera up, show you this group. All right, turn it so you guys can see it. All right, so this is a 2-inch circle at 5 yards. Had a pretty decent tight group on it. I was using a combat hold or combat sight picture to where I had equal height, equal light, and I was using the center of that front dot as my point of impact. So I was covering what I wanted to hit with the center of that front dot, and this was the group as a result of using that hold. So at 5 yards on a 2-inch circle, I had a pretty decent, probably 1.5-inch group or so there. So pretty happy with that accuracy out of the gun. So far it's been reliable, but like I said, we're gonna put this through a little bit of abuse today and see how it holds up. All right, now we're gonna run this gun through some one-handed manipulations and see if these plastic sights will hold up on this gun to that type of abuse. Now, in my magazine, I've got 4 empty shell casings that I randomly loaded throughout the magazine. So I'm going to run this drill one-handed. As I come up to a stoppage, I'm going to rack the gun one-handed off from this 2x4 post, and then go back to shooting. We'll see how it holds up to that abuse. All right, created a double feed, load it back up. Double feed, load it back up. Double feed. That time it cleared. All right, and that was the last one. Okay, so something interesting to note about doing that drill where I loaded the empty casings just randomly throughout my magazine. Now that's a malfunction drill that I run pretty often in my personal practice with my Glocks. And it's very rare that it causes double feeds for me. A lot of times with the Glock, it's a simple tap, rack, reassess, go back to work. That clears the malfunction. Now 3 out of the 4 times with the G2C, it created a double feed malfunction to where I wasn't able to clear it with the simple tap rack. Now that's a drill that I use in my Defensive Pistol 2 class to be able to teach students to get some reps with clearing out one-handed malfunctions, and the majority of the time it's a simple tap rack reassess. I've had a variety of guns come through class and they've run that drill, and I've never seen one that created so many double feeds the way this one is. And I don't know if it's just the geometry with the way the magazine is and the angle of the feed ramp. It just seems every time one of those empty cases would come up, it would end up creating a double feed situation to where you couldn't clear it with a simple tap rack. So just something to note. The plastic rear sight, it did not get ripped off the gun. It did not really like that drill though. If you can kind of see, the top of that sight is, you know, had some pretty good trauma to it, so it kind of lost some of its clean top edges. The right hand ear of that sight is actually a little bit shorter than the left hand one. If you can see the top edges of those rear sights, how much wear was created by doing those one-handed manipulations. You can kind of see the difference in how much material is above the white dot on each one of those. So it definitely wasn't good for it, but if you had to do that type of one-handed manipulation in a self-defense situation, the sight did hold up. So I've seen a lot of plastic sights, stock sights on Glocks that were easily ripped off the gun doing the very first one-handed manipulation that they were subject to. So the fact that this rear sight did stay on the gun, you know, that's a plus in my book. But another point to make about these sights, now with the plastic sights that come on a Glock, obviously they're easily replaced and there's a ton of aftermarket support. So with a Taurus, good luck trying to find a sight manufacturer that builds a quality set of steel sights to be able to replace these stock sights. So that's just kind of another point I wanted to make. You know, with any of the more mainstream guns, they have much better aftermarket support than something like this is going to have. All right, so next up with the testing, I think we're going to get this thing dirty and see if it still runs. So how I'm going to do this is I've got an empty chamber and a full magazine. I'm going to insert the full magazine. Again, I've got that sticky mag issue. Insert that full magazine with an empty chamber. I'm going to get this gun dirty, and then we're going to pick it up, rack it, and see if it runs. All right, nice and dirty, packed in there. Pick it up, give it a little bit of a shake off, get some of that dirt outside that trigger guard so we're able to fire the gun. All right, we've got it all caked full of dirt. See if we can rack around into it. Racked just fine, sounded fine. Let's put some rounds through it, see if it'll run. Locked back on the last round, ran through all 12, no problem at all. As you can see how dirty that was. Ran just fine, so it passed that dirt test. Now let's give it some mud. All right, I have found some mud. So we're gonna do the same thing. I've got an empty chamber, full magazine, insert the full magazine, get past that little catch that we always get there and insert that full magazine with an empty chamber, and then this thing is going in the mud. Alright, that looks pretty good. We're going to pick it up, put some rounds through it, and see if it works. Alright guys, here it is. Now, I'll be honest with you, the first time I pulled the trigger on the last test with all that dirt that was in it, I had a lot of dirt that came back into my face, and I'm sure this is going to be no different. So I'm not really looking forward to pulling the trigger on this gun right now. But first off, we need to see if we can get a round in the chamber. Alright. It did not pick up a round. Magazine seated. I might have, when I stepped on the gun, it might have actually unseated that magazine. I might have stepped on the mag release, so I just reseated that magazine. Let's rack it again. Alright, it didn't quite go all the way into battery. and I don't think it's going to. Alright, got it cleared out here, rack it a few times, insert the magazine, rack it, still no good. Now we've got a round that partway went into the chamber, and the slide breech face isn't even up against the back of that round. But I can't even tap it into battery and get it to seat all the way, so I don't think we are going to be able to fire this gun if we can't get it into battery here. I have an idea. There's a mud puddle over there. Let's rinse it off a little bit. That does not sound good. That might work. Alright, so here it is, rinsed it off in a mud puddle. Still has a lot of mud and grit inside the gun, but let's see if it'll chamber around. It did. Let's see if it'll shoot. Alright, it ran through the rest of that mag, locked back on that last round. And I got a face full of muddy water every time I pulled the trigger, but the gun ran. So, provided it is clean enough to chamber around, it seems to run okay. Now, I was pretty impressed with the way it ran after stomping it in the dirt. You know, it had a lot of dirt in the gun. To just shake it out a little bit, chamber around, it ran through that full mag. I was pretty impressed with that. I was not surprised that it did not run after packing it full of mud. And the fact that I must have stepped on that magazine release when I was packing it full of mud to have it partially eject that magazine to where around the base pad it was completely caked full to where I couldn't even seat it fully. So that was probably a lot of the issue there. Rinsed it out in the mud puddle and then it seemed to run fine. So as far as the gun running while dirty, I would give this a pass. This was pretty impressive. Alright, the Taurus G2C. Is it going to be the gun that I recommend everybody to buy? Of course not. But if somebody has an extreme budget and this is all they can afford, something under $200, I would recommend this over something like a High Point or something that is in that price bracket. Now, right now you can get M&P shields with the rebate that they have going on right now for about that $200 mark after the rebate, but you still have to pony up that extra 50 bucks to be able to buy it and then wait for your rebate to come back. So this is 13 round capacity. The shield is, you know, the 8 round capacity. So it's kind of depending on what you're looking for in a gun. If you buy something like the M&P shield, it has a proven track record. It's from Smith & Wesson. It's a high quality gun. This is from Taurus. We all kind of know what their reputation and track record is, but from what we saw with it today, I was pretty impressed with how it ran when it was dirty. Yes, it's got some weird kooky type things. That magazine, every time you insert it, it catches part way in. Has that little hang up before it finally inserts. I didn't like that. I wasn't a fan of the trigger, how much take up it has. It wasn't a terribly snappy recoil impulse. It shot decent. It put together a decent little group on that dot torture target. The accuracy I thought was okay on it. it held up to those one-handed manipulations. I wasn't a huge fan on how many double feeds were created, and I don't know exactly what goes into that. I'm sure it has to do with the geometry inside the gun, with the way the round comes out of the magazine and up in the feed ramp. You know, I don't get those double feed malfunctions when I do that drill with Glocks and M&Ps. I got almost nothing but double feeds with the Taurus, so there was that. So I mean, there's a couple issues that I wasn't a fan of. I didn't go into this review thinking I was going to love this gun, obviously, but I was impressed with how it ran when it was dirty. That first dirt test, packing it full like that, it ran flawlessly, chambered that first round, ran through the whole magazine, and locked back on an empty chamber. I thought that was really good. Well, time will tell on this gun. I mean, I'll keep this gun in my range bag, and every time I go to the range, I'll put a couple mags through it. I'll update you guys when I get 1,000 rounds on it, when I get 2,000 rounds. This will be something I'll have at class. I'll encourage students to beat it up, and we'll see how it holds up. I'm Jason Hitchings with Adept Defense. Seek training, become adept.